Hello, this is High Templar with a new episode of my Total War Warhammer Mechanics, and today we'll be talking about spells mechanic, how it works, because I've been hearing recently people that have been playing this game for hundreds of hours, including some prominent YouTubers, that are saying stuff that is just not true and they don't really understand how it works. For example, that armor piercing, that all spells are armor piercing. It doesn't matter how much armor the enemy has, it's that all armor piercing. The same I heard about people talk about the units that deal magical damage, like Thorgrim, and this is also not true. So what the magical damage does is it does the same kind of damage as normal melee damage, as missile damage, as any other, and this is three main components: the armor piercing, the non-armor piercing, and physical impact. While physical impact Total War Warhammer for the melee attacks is less of an issue because it was nerfed greatly since the time of Rome 2, the spell physical impact damage is very much important. But let's first go back to armor piercing. You have a Pit of Shades here. If I click Overcast, it is clearly saying increased armor piercing damage. That means this spell has increased armor piercing damage if I overcast it. That means non-overcasted version will work greatly for unarmored units, but it will do pretty much nothing, except for mostly physical impact, for that matter, to armored units. And if you are casting on armored unit, you should always overcast. If you are casting on light armor unit, you should probably not, because miscast chance. The price difference is not so much, but the miscast chance is something you need to remember. And this is also very much visible in the Amber Spear, which Amber Spear causes armor piercing damage. It stays in the spell that it mostly causes armor piercing damage, which is very important because this is pretty cool spell. It does about 1400 damage to a unit, and if you can cast it on, say, Chaos Knights, it's really worth it. If you overcast it, it's even cause greater armor piercing damage from explosion and increased armor piercing damage, which is, even more. And this is actually very, very cool example because the same goes for the buffing spells, and I can show you this right now. So this is a spell that increase the weapon damage by 22%. But this is not armor piercing damage, this is just weapon damage, non-armor piercing, just normal weapon damage. So 22%, and this is good example. Many people have been casting this Wisdom Wild form on Bestigors, and this is very much a lost spell in this if you do that. Plus 15 armor and plus 22 weapon damage on the Bestigor. This is Bestigor unit. Where is he? He already have 100 armor, so that means additional 15 armor will decrease damage dealt to him mildly, to say at least, by few percent, by 2%, 3%, not much. And if it's armor piercing damage, armor will be ignored, so not very useful. And his weapon strength is 10 melee damage non-armor piercing. That means this spell will add additional 2 damage to this unit. 2. From 40 to 42. So this spell is lost on the Bestigors. So mind you, this is very important that those spells will work very, very differently. The other thing is the physical impact damage, and this is very much visible in the Foot of Gorg. The Foot of Gorg does pretty nice damage if you can use it correctly. It is great explosion spell, and it would be really wasted to cast it on the light armored troops, or should I say light troops in general. this spell will do pretty nice damage on all heavy troops, and that would include especially overcasted, because heavy troops usually do have heavy armor. And this is very much visible in heavy cav units. And if you've seen some people, including my videos, for example, when you are cast, I've seen casted this Foot of Gore overcasted on the 2 units of Chaos Knights with lances, decimating the unit, leaving like 20% of health on them, or even less. 2 units of Chaos Knights. At that point, right now they are not that expensive. I mean, they are still pretty expensive, but that used to be amazing loss to a player if he bunched up 2 units of Chaos Knights and they died. And this is very nicely seen, for example, in the dwarves. Explosion spells actually do works pretty nicely for dwarves, even though they have magic resistance. So yeah, this is something you have to remember. This is something very important. And all those explosion spells will work much better in the heavier units, and this is not really matter if those units are armored or non-armored. And you can see the example, for example, if you cast it on trolls, if you cast it on beasts, it's very much visible. So the other thing that I still see people not really getting is area of effect. So Doom and Darkness normally do only have you can cast it on a target that is 200 meters away from you. And if you overcast it, you are adding something called effective range. So that means everyone 45 meters from the epicenter will be affected by this spell. And what is very important is that you can cast it either on a unit or on a ground. If you cast it on the ground, this epicenter will not move. If you cast it on a unit and the unit is running towards you, when you end casting spell, which lasts for a few seconds, this unit will be still in the center, and every unit that is 45 meters around it will be affected by this spell. But if you cast it on the ground, the units that will be affected will be the ones that are in the 45 meters around this area by the time you finished casting. And this is something very, very important, and something some people still are confused about. They are asking why it's not working. Well, it's not working because it has to be at the end of the casting spell. Those units have to be inside. And also, mind you, 30 meters effective range is actually twice, the area of effect is actually twice smaller than effective range of 45 meters. Just because, the area of a circle is, it's pi r square, where r is radius. That's not that important. So these are the main things that I believe people are getting wrong in the spells. So it's effective range, there is range in general, and there is armor piercing damage and physical impact damage that people don't really seem to get. And it's also very visible in the wind spells. The wind spells are also including Wind of Death, when you have this physical impact that is quite substantial in those spells, the effect, the damage done by those. So, and there are some spells that do very little armor piercing damage, like Burning Head. If you've seen my tests, you've seen that Burning Heads, for example, do pretty much no damage against armored infantry, and people, any armored targets, and people do tend to cast spells on heavy armored units because they want to get the most of the spell, and they want to cast this on the units that are very, very powerful. And this is not the way to go. Also, there is this people keep saying about the other one thing that people are getting wrong is they expect some of the spells to deal equal damage to the infantry units and the cavalry units. And these are the spells like Flock of Doom, for example. Now, Flock of Doom is effective against multiple combatants because it does damage to each entity in a unit. And a very excellent counterexample is... sorry, cannot find it. It's in the wild, and it's Traitor Kin. Traitor Kin, how it works, it will kill people in a unit one by one. So the one guy will die, second guy will die, third guy will die, and this is no matter how many guys you have in a unit. And this is very good if you are casting it on the monsters, especially because it has area of effect. So it's very cool if you use it against trolls, if you use it against several heroes bunched up in there. The exact opposite, and it will always deal the same amount of damage no matter how many entities are inside the circle, right? The opposite of that is Flock of Doom. The Flock of Doom will deal most damage to the unit that has most entities. So it will wreak havoc against goblins and against imperial units whenever the great swords will have 120 guys inside. It will do very little. I'm not saying even against heroes, but against cavalry units it will do twice less, because cavalry units has 60 entities, right? So this is also important to understand how it works. Mind you, however, that many cavalry units actually have very little health, like 4,000 compared to 8,000 of the infantry units. I mean, yeah, not all infantry units has that much, orc infantry units has that much, but mind you, there is a difference. So if you want to get, so Flock of Doom in many cases will get a unit down to 2/3, no matter what unit is that. And it might be worth casting it on multiple cav units as long as those cav units are expensive, right? And this is pretty much it from what I wanted to talk about in this particular video. I hope you liked it. If you did, press like, comment if you will, and see my other videos. I do lots of mechanics videos for Total War series in general. I do DLC analysis and speculation for Total War Warhammer, and I do mod reviews for Total War Warhammer, but I also do Let's Plays for Total War series and other games. Thank you for watching, and see you later.